center the first few years. Now, right here we see a lot of kids in this tennis court and basketball thing. There was a steel tank here during the First World War. That tank was 90 feet in diameter, 60 feet high. It was built to store 3 million gallons of molasses. They used a distillate thereof in the manufacture of munitions during the war. Now, here in New England, we oftentimes see widely divergent temperatures. Just a couple of days ago, it was near 80. Today, it's not going to get out of the 30s, you know. And happens all the time. Sometimes warm, sometimes cold. Now, January 18, 1919, that tank was sitting in this corner over here with 3 million gallons of molasses crammed into the thing. And it was about 15 degrees Fahrenheit, pretty chilly. By the time the sun rose on January 19th, it was already 45 degrees. The temperature was climbing. By noon, it was in the 60s, still climbing. Bright sunny day, laser-like winter sunlight beating down here in a steel tank filled with molasses. Molasses in the tank started to cook up in the rapidly rising temperature. Started to ferment. Started to expand. Somewhere around the quarter of 1 in the afternoon, people started to hear a hissing sound down here, and then they heard a thumping sound. Then all of a sudden, that tank burst wide open. A tidal wave of molasses, 3 million gallons of molasses, a wave 30 feet high, moved 25 miles an hour down Commercial Street over here, destroyed buildings, knocked them off their foundations. An elevated train came down after a train went through. People went on, they were covered in molasses. Took weeks to clean this thing up. It's what we call the Great Molasses Flood of 1919. We call it that just in case you have another Great Molasses Flood. At any rate, this is stop number 5, GD Garden, North Station, Amtrak, Commuter Rail, Orange and Green subway lines, and another view of the Zachem Bridge. Different perspective. Now, do we have tickets or do we stow away some carpetbaggers? Okay, there we are. Oh, I don't have tickets to send you. Yeah, you can buy them online. You can buy them online while we're riding, but if you don't buy the ticket and show me before we're done, then I will track you down. We'll find you.
Okay, I will buy them while we're sitting here.
All right. Here, take this, and there's a code to scan.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Anyway, we're going to leave from stop number 5 over here.
How long is this bridge?
How long is that bridge? Well, I don't know how long it is. I forget how. It's about. It's not the longest cable staying bridge. It's the widest.
Oh.
You know, sometimes it's not the height; it's the width. You know.
All right.
And, but the bridge itself is about 3/4 of a mile long. Repeats the thing that had been here before. When I was a kid, there was an elevated. We'll talk about that a little later on. But it was really a horrible looking thing. Actually, when I was very young, I went to my sister in 1969. Brandon, speaking of such things, I'm going to tell you a little bit how that all kind of came about. We're going to head into the West End down here. There's an area, it's about a 1/4 mile square, and it was created out of landfill in the 1850s to expand our residential space down here. And by the 1950s, 6,000 people lived in the West End. It's a working class neighborhood. By the 1950s, 6,000 people, middle to low income at best, mostly Irish, Italian, and Jewish. Living in brick and brownstone tenements, row houses. Also by the 1950s, all across the country, farmland was being converted into suburbs, housing developments with lovely little single-family, affordable homes with little backyards and tree-lined streets. You get all the jobs you wanted at these office parks, industrial parks, shopping malls, and taking care of all your consumer needs. The Interstate Highway and Defense Act right around then started to build all kinds of big, wide, comfortable roads all over the country, taking from city to suburb without delay. So when you put it all together, you end up with a lot of people leaving a lot of cities in great numbers very quickly, taking businesses with them, and cities were panicking. In 1950, we had nearly 1 million residents in Boston. In 1960, we had about 300,000. So cities wanted to turn these trends around, and one strategy was called urban renewal. Tear down an old section of a city and build something new in its place. Does it keep people interested, was the idea. And we had a lot of urban renewal in Boston and all across the country. Very often, urban renewal was done with care and beneficence, towards those who would be affected, but not in every case. 1956, city and federal officials came to the people of the West End. They said, listen, In an effort to save Boston, we think it would be well for you to leave your neighborhood temporarily. If you do, we'll tear everything down. You'll come back in a couple of years. Everything will be new. These people realized they were being sold a bill of goods. They smelled a rat. They were right to smell it. They thanked city and federal officials for their lovely offer, but told them they had no intention of leaving. They were staying put. Now, city and federal officials are in a bind. They had already done all kinds of secret, sneaky backdoor deals with all kinds of developers and builders and other entities as to who would be assigned rights to develop these properties once those rights were wrestled away from their then current owners. Envelopes had already been exchanged, if you understand my meaning. Even if you don't understand my meaning, they were still exchanged. So now they had to figure out how to get these people out of the West End so they could fulfill their nefarious accords. They finally figured it out in 1958. They stopped collecting trash in the West End for months in the summer, absolutely. And before long, the West End was chock full of trash and stink and those rats that they were smelling a couple of years earlier. So now the same city and federal officials came back. Now they declared that the West End was a blighted neighborhood, is the language that they used. No longer suitable for human habitation. People are living here for 100 years. Now all of a sudden it's unsuitable for human habitation. Now it is their duty for the health, safety, and well-being of these people that they remove them. Which they did. They hauled these people out of here. They chased out some, they dragged out others. And then they started to build. Now all of a sudden it was suitable for human habitation again. They started to build high-priced apartment towers like the one sort of diagonally across from us over there, and hotels and shopping centers. They added acres and acres onto Massachusetts General Hospital, parking garages, shopping centers, one thing and another. Nothing for the West Enders till about a dozen years ago. They offered a dozen apartments in this building directly ahead of us to the original 6,000 residents. But that's 50 years after the fact. Most of these people are already dead, which kind of worked out because they only offered a dozen apartments. And if you're looking for an apartment around here right now, within about a 2-mile radius of this very spot, you'll find that your most basic, no frills, 400 square foot studio apartment, 3-quarter bath, 2-burner kitchen, heat, hot water, lights, parking not included. That apartment right now has gone close to $5,000 a month. You ain't kidding. Anything less than that, anything less than 2,500 is 25 miles outside of the city. I live right now 26 miles outside of the city. And my apartment's up for sale, so wait a minute. This travesty of architecture to our right went up in that period of time. Anyway, where we're going ahead is also the product of urban renewal. It wasn't as devastating as the